Okay. Hi, I'm Tyler. I'm from the Royal National Institute for Deaf People, also known as RNID, based in the UK. I'm a user researcher, and my day-to-day involves learning from people who might use our services to gather their experiences and their needs. Today, I'm going to share a look into how we design the experience of taking part in research at RNID. So first, I'm going to show you how we think about research from the participant's point of view. Then I'll share how this helps us create a better experience for the people who take part in our research. And to finish, I'll go through some examples of how we're improving. So when was the last time you took part in research? I think when we're researchers more often than we're participants, it's easy to forget what it's like to take part in research. But to provide a good experience for the people who take part in our research, it's important we learn to see it from their point of view. So how do we do that? So here's how I'm learning to see research from a participant's point of view. When I start a research project or enter a new territory, I create a map. I use the map to illustrate different stages, the activities at each stage, and then the touch points or interactions within them. The map shows the journey someone goes on when they take part in research. So here I've mapped a pretty common participant experience. There's 6 stages in this journey. From left to right, they say becoming aware, getting involved, preparing, taking part, after taking part, and getting involved again. So after I map the stages, I consider the detail. From a participant's point of view, what's happening at each stage. So we often talk about user research as an event. It's an interview, a workshop, a usability test. But mapping the experience encourages me to think about participating in research as a journey, not an event. It also helps me to move beyond focusing on the moments when I'm personally involved as the researcher towards understanding the full experience from a participant's point of view. Once we've mapped the experience, it becomes easier to identify opportunities for improving or learning more. So after I create the map, I look for moments where we can improve or where we need to learn more. Sometimes it's about looking across the stages in the journey. Other times it's about understanding the specific touch points or interactions within one stage. The more detailed the map and the more I know about the people who take part, the easier it is to identify moments of impact. So let's look at how we're improving the stage where someone gets involved in research at RNID. So this is when we'd like to find out if someone's a good fit for a research study. It's also when people let us know if they'd like to take part and how. How can we make this more safe, accessible, respectful, or welcoming? So at this stage, to find opportunities, I ask questions like, can people make fully informed decisions in their preferred language? Have we anticipated people's needs, and are they encouraged to communicate them too? Are we flexible enough? Can people make their own choices? So here's some of the ideas that come out of that process. At this stage, we think we should give information early on that's reassuring, informative, and accessible. Ask for consent in people's preferred language. Allow people to communicate their needs, but offer informed options too. So at RNID, we've redesigned our consent form and our information sheet. This is so we can ask better questions, communicate more clearly, and offer choice. Our materials also show now that we have an understanding of the needs of deaf people and people with hearing loss, while also encouraging them to communicate their needs to us. And another thing we've looked at was how people are giving consent. Now, people who use British Sign Language as a first language are asked for their consent in BSL. So let's look at how we're improving the stage when someone's taking part. So this is when someone takes part in the engagement. So often we're asking them a series of questions, we're having someone review existing materials, or we're asking them to create new ones. How can we make this more safe, accessible, respectful, or welcoming? Here, to find opportunities, I asked questions like, is the space set up to support the person taking part? Have we asked how they identify, or do we know which language we should use? Have we considered how to work best with the communication support professionals? And so again, asking questions help to bring some ideas to the surface. At this stage, we think we should set up a deaf-friendly space, whether online or in person. Ask people to identify themselves and reflect the language they use. And then work with the communication support in a collaborative way. So at RNID, we considered what a deaf-friendly space might look like online. That includes the way we use screen sharing, how we prioritize someone's access to an interpreter through usability tests, for example, and even things like the lighting and the setup of our own space before we join a video call. We also considered how we write our discussion guides. So now at the start of every session, we'll ask people to identify themselves and we'll use the language they use through the rest of the conversation. And finally, we've looked at the way we work with communication support professionals. The more we can inform them before research begins, the better equipped they are to help us deliver the interviews. It's important that interpreters know why we're asking certain questions so they can interpret the meaning in sign language. So finally, let's look at how we're improving the stage after someone takes part. So this is when we offer our thanks and payment for participating. It also might be the last time we communicate with someone, so we make sure they have all the information they need. How can we make this more safe, accessible, respectful, or welcoming? Here, I ask questions like, have we given people the resources they might need? Will people leave feeling fully informed if they want to be? Is it clear that people are in control of their own information? And how are we showing people that we value their participation? And again, asking questions at this stage made us think we should give people the option to stay informed, ensure that any outputs we share are accessible, and support people if they want to share their story more widely. So we redesigned the end of our communication with the participants. Now at the end of any engagement, we ask people if they'd like to stay informed of our key learning. We make sure they know this is optional and it will be provided in plain English and British Sign Language. We're also thinking about ways people can give us feedback once we share these learnings and how we can make this process more accessible to BSL users. And finally, our first priority as researchers is often to keep people safe. This includes keeping their identity and their information anonymous. That being said, we think it's important to recognize that some people want to share their stories more widely to inspire others or promote change. By letting them know that this is an option, we can connect them to colleagues who might help them share their stories on the website, social media, or through campaigning. So to finish, I hope this shows how focusing on the stages across the journey helps us to see beyond the research engagement. I think it means we can notice some of the interactions that are often less considered, which still to a participant or someone who's taking part in research, it's all part of the same experience. At RNID, we're continuing to find opportunities for where we can improve across the journey. And I think what's both exciting and challenging is how each project or person who takes part in research presents new opportunities for us to improve the way that we do things. So thanks very much for your time, and thank you to Magnify for having me.